Welcome everyone. Today we are unpacking the mechanics of systemic risk through two historic financial failures, Lehman Brothers in 2008 and IL&FS in 2018. While separated by a decade and operating across different asset classes, both crises share an identical DNA, an over-reliance on short-term debt to fund long-term, illiquid assets. This is the definitive study of the shadow banking system's blind spots. Our objective is to move past the sensational headlines and look strictly at the balance sheets. We will analyze how Lehman and IL&FS built multi-billion-dollar empires on fragile foundations, how credit rating gatekeepers failed to flag structural insolvency, and the exact metrics you can use to protect your portfolios today. To understand these crises, we must understand shadow banking. Unlike traditional commercial banks, institutions like investment banks and NBFCs cannot take ordinary retail deposits. Instead, they raise money from institutional investors via short-term market instruments. They operate with lower regulatory cushions, meaning they have no margin for error when market sentiment turns negative. Lehman Brothers was a Wall Street titan with over 150 years of history. Leading up to 2007, they chased hypergrowth by aggressively expanding into subprime mortgage originations. They leveraged their balance sheet to an astronomical 31-to-1 ratio, meaning a minor 3% drop in the value of their assets would wipe out their entire equity base completely. In India, infrastructure leasing and financial services played a similar systemic role. With blue-chip institutional shareholders like LIC and SBI, the market treated IL&FS as if it were a sovereign entity. This implicit guarantee allowed IL&FS to accumulate massive debt across a dizzying web of more than 250 subsidiaries, all while building India's core infrastructure assets. Crises require an environment of easy money. In the US, low interest rates pushed institutional investors to chase yields via structured financial products. In India, a surge in mutual fund liquidity post-2016 caused a wall of money to flow directly into the commercial paper market, providing NBFCs with cheap, continuous short-term financing. Neither Lehman nor IL&FS operated in isolation. They were deeply intertwined with the financial system. Asset managers bought their debt, banks extended credit lines, and insurance companies guaranteed their portfolios. If the core node fails, the entire network experiences a sudden, systemic shock. This slide shows the structural trap that doomed both companies. They funded long-term projects using short-term debt instruments. As long as markets are stable, you can continually pay off old short-term debt by issuing new short-term debt. This is known as rolling over your capital. But if the market freezes for even 24 hours, you face an immediate cash crunch. Lehman specialized in financial engineering. They took thousands of risky subprime mortgages, pooled them together, and sliced them into structured tranches. The highest tranches were rated AAA by credit rating agencies, based on the flawed assumption that real estate markets across different states would never correct at the same time. When the market ran out of quality mortgages, Wall Street created collateralized debt obligations. They took the lower-rated, higher-risk tranches of existing mortgage pools and bundled them together to create entirely new investment vehicles. This was leverage on top of leverage, masking the true operational risk of the underlying assets. While Lehman dealt in financial real estate assets, IL&FS dealt in physical infrastructure. Highway projects, power grids, and water treatment facilities have long gestation periods. When land acquisition and environmental clearances stalled across India, IL&FS found its capital completely trapped in unfinished projects that generated zero cash, even as their short-term borrowing costs mounted. When the underlying leverage began to stress operations, both firms turned to creative accounting. Lehman used an internal accounting maneuver known as Repo 105. They treated short-term borrowing as an asset sale, lowering their reported leverage right before quarterly reporting dates. Similarly, IL&FS used its complex web of unlisted subsidiaries to shift debt and book artificial profits at the parent level. Investors depend on credit rating agencies to verify corporate health. Yet both Lehman and IL&FS maintained pristine AAA ratings right until the edge of their collapses. Why? The issuer pays model created a conflict of interest, and rating frameworks failed to account for sudden liquidity freezes in short-term wholesale debt markets. Let's examine the raw data. Lehman was managing over $600 billion in assets on a tiny sliver of actual equity capital. IL&FS had accumulated close to 91,000 crore rupees in total debt. A substantial chunk of this debt was short-term commercial papers that required continuous renewal by mutual funds. The moment the music stopped, neither company had the cash to meet their basic obligations. For investors, the ultimate takeaway from this module is to analyze the liquid asset ratio. If an institution's immediate cash and liquid investments cannot cover its short-term debt maturities over a rolling 30-day window, it is entirely dependent on market sentiment. If that sentiment turns cold, insolvency is almost guaranteed. Every structural crisis has an immediate trigger. For Lehman, it was the steady rise in U.S. home loan defaults, which forced massive write-downs on mortgage securities. For IL&FS, the trigger pulled in late mid-2018 when it defaulted on a series of routine commercial paper repayments. This single default signaled to the market that the sovereign-backed giant had run completely out of cash. In shadow banking, cash disappears long before an entity files for bankruptcy. This happens via the repo and commercial paper markets. When counterparties lose faith in your balance sheet, they refuse to renew your short-term loans. Suddenly, you must pay back billions in maturing debt today, with no ability to raise replacement capital. Over the weekend of September 13, 2008, the fate of the global financial system hung in the balance. The Federal Reserve attempted to broker a private buyout of Lehman, but with toxic assets choking its books, potential buyers walked away. The U.S. government chose not to provide an emergency bailout, paving the way for the largest bankruptcy filing in history. On Monday, September 15th, Lehman Brothers filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The shockwave was instantaneous. Because nobody knew who held Lehman's toxic debt, banks completely stopped lending to each other. A premier money market fund broke the buck as its share value fell below $1, sparking a massive run on money market funds across the globe. In India, the IL&FS default triggered an identical chain reaction. Debt mutual funds were heavily exposed to IL&FS debt. When those assets were written down to zero, retail and corporate investors rushed to pull their cash out of liquid mutual funds. To meet this massive redemptions wave, mutual funds stopped buying debt from any non-banking financial company, triggering a broad liquidity squeeze across the entire Indian financial sector. A financial crisis quickly becomes a real-world economic crisis. When shadow banking freezes, credit lines to the broader economy dry up. In the U.S., it led to the Great Recession. In India, consumer vehicle loans and real estate construction financing stalled, illustrating how institutional accounting issues directly impact everyday economic growth. Look at this chart. The sudden spike in interest spreads shows the premium that institutions demanded just to lend to one another. When these spreads widen, even healthy businesses find it too expensive to roll over their operational debt, turning an isolated insolvency into a broad market crisis. Realizing that Lehman's collapse threatened a total systemic breakdown, the U.S. government completely reversed its non-intervention stance. Congress passed the Troubled Asset Relief Program to inject billions into major banks, while the Federal Reserve launched quantitative easing, purchasing mortgage debt directly to restore stability to credit markets. India chose a different path than the U.S. liquidation of Lehman. Learning from global history, the Indian government moved to take control of IL&FS. They dismissed the existing board and appointed an emergency board led by veteran banker Uday Kotak. This intervention stabilized the markets, preventing a chaotic asset sell-off and ensuring projects were resolved over time. The Kotak-led board faced the challenge of managing over 250 distinct entities. They implemented a practical traffic light classification system. Green entities serviced debt normally. Amber entities underwent targeted restructuring, and red entities were slated for structured asset sales. This systematic approach helped recover a significant portion of the total outstanding debt. The regulatory response in the United States arrived via the Dodd-Frank Act. It introduced structural protections designed to eliminate the need for future taxpayer-funded bailouts. It banned banks from risky proprietary trading, mandated higher capital reserves for systemically important firms, and required banks to maintain living wills, clear escape plans in case of bankruptcy. In India, the Reserve Bank of India completely overhauled its approach to the shadow banking sector. They introduced a four-tiered, scale-based regulation framework. Large, systemically important NBFCs were placed in the upper layer, subjecting them to strict bank-like regulations, including mandatory liquidity coverage ratios and continuous asset liability monitoring. The long-term consequence of both events was a structural repricing of credit risk. The era of cheap, unverified short-term funding for shadow banks came to an end. In the U.S., derivatives markets were brought into centralized clearinghouses. In India, mutual funds shifted capital towards secure assets, forcing NBFCs to diversify their funding away from short-term market instruments. Today, risk management departments utilize automated, real-time liquidity forecasting tools. Regulators and corporate treasury teams no longer rely purely on historical quarterly financial data. Instead, they run continuous stress tests that simulate systemic market disruptions, ensuring institutions maintain cash buffers to survive severe credit freezes. Our first major lesson for investors is simple. Look past the asset growth and analyze the liability structure. A company can hold premium, high-yielding assets, but if those assets are funded using volatile, short-term debt that requires renewal every few days, the business model carries structural risk. True financial resilience requires diversified, stable, long-term funding. As analysts, you must learn to read the asset liability management disclosures hidden in corporate footnotes. This table outlines exactly when cash inflows from assets are expected relative to when debt obligations mature. If you spot a significant negative mismatch in the early short-term tranches, you are looking at a company that is exposed to sudden shifts in market liquidity. Never outsource your investment due diligence to a company's corporate pedigree or its current credit rating. Lehman was a historic Wall Street icon. IL&FS was backed by major domestic institutional shareholders. The market assumed both were too big to fail, which allowed their structural leverage to expand unchecked. Do your own analysis of the numbers, regardless of the brand name. When evaluating systemically important firms, calculate the true structural leverage ratio. When an institution's tangible common equity drops to a tiny percentage of its total debt liabilities, there is no margin for error. A minor adjustment in asset valuations can completely wipe out the underlying equity cushion, triggering immediate technical insolvency. Financial crises are driven by human behavior as much as mathematical models. During periods of sustained economic growth, executives and investors often assume that short-term capital markets will always function normally. This optimism leads institutions to increase leverage to boost returns, ignoring the reality that market confidence can evaporate overnight. To wrap up, the collapses of Lehman Brothers and IL&FS show that financial engineering cannot permanently overcome structural asset-liability mismatches. Profits are an accounting metric. Liquidity is an absolute reality. By focusing on diversified funding sources, independent risk assessment, and conservative leverage limits, you can protect your portfolios from systemic shadow banking crises. Thank you for your time.